Hello again, welcome to English for Citizenship, brought to you by the Springvale Learning and Activities Centre. Here is a new word for you called federation. 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 Federation is when Australia became a Commonwealth in 1901. 1901 is the year that you need to remember for your test. 1901. Why don't you read this sentence with me? In 1901, the colonies were united into a federation of states called the Commonwealth of Australia. I know that is a very hard sentence. Let me try to explain that to you. Here is a picture of Australia divided into colonies, separate places where people lived. Colonies. Here is down here, this might help you. Colonies, the name of the different areas or places that Australia had before states. So colonies are where people lived. But in 1901, each colony joined together. See the hands joined together to become a country of Australia. So the states joined and they became one country called Commonwealth of Australia. When did this happen? 1901. So I want you to learn this word here, united. These come from the same word, united. You say it with me, united, unity, unified. This means joined together. See the hands joined together? This word, uni, means one. One. So Australia became one country. It's called federation. One country. So united, unity, unified. Just remember, if you see this, it means one. Joined together, uni. So what you need to remember for your test is that in 1901, Australia became known as the Commonwealth of Australia, joined together to become one country in 1901. And it was called Federation, where Australia became a Commonwealth, the Commonwealth of Australia. I know that's hard, but well done if you've got those words. So I want to tell you about some things about the population of Australia and about immigration. So let's go through those two words. First of all, population. In 1901, at the time of Federation, Australia's population was about 4 million people. Remember, population means how many people. How many people lived in Australia in 1901? It was about 4 million people. But when they counted the people, they did not count Indigenous people. This did not include Indigenous people. Here is a cross, and here are Indigenous people. They did not include Indigenous people in the 4 million people count. So the population of Australia in 1901 at Federation was 4 million, not including Indigenous people. Okay, let's try this sentence. In the 20th century, which means 1900s, migration levels rose and fell. Here is an up arrow. Here is a down arrow. Up means rose. Down means fall or fell. Rose up, fell down. Now look at this word here. Can you say this word? Migration. Migration. So this is what that means. If you migrate or migration or an immigrant, all comes from the same word. It means movement to another place. Movement to another place. Migration, or to migrate, or an immigrant moving to another place. So in the 20th century, in the 1900s, after Federation, migration levels, that means how many people were moving to Australia. They rose and they fell. They went up and they went down. Up and down. Rose and fell. In Britain, remember this flag comes from Britain, Great Britain. In Britain, they tried to encourage people to come to Australia. Here is a sign that says, Australia, build your children's future. For £10 you can get to Australia. So there were programs to encourage British migrants to settle here in Australia. In Britain, they wanted to send people to Australia. So they encouraged them to migrate to Australia. British migrants were encouraged to settle in Australia, to move to Australia. Okay, then here is a picture of Europe. Europe. A wave of immigrants, remember, migrant, immigrant, someone who moves. A wave of immigrants came from Europe after World War II, when many people had to leave their homelands. So World War II was mostly fought in Europe. After the war, Many people came from Europe to Australia. Many migrants came from Europe after World War II to live in Australia. A wave of immigrants, that means a lot. A wave like in the ocean, a big rise in immigrants. A wave of immigrants came from Europe after World War II. Just remember World War II and Europe, and then many people migrated to Australia. How are you doing? Doing well. These are hard words. Okay. In recent years, that means lately, now, recently, our migration and refugee programs have brought people to Australia from all over the world. People living in Australia come from all over the world. The current population of Australia is about 25 million people. Remember, population means how many people. Current means now. How many people now are there in Australia? The answer is about 25 million people now. Here's the number written as 25 million. Remember, in 1901, there were about 4 million people at the time of Federation. 4 million people in 1901. Now there are 25 million people. The current population of Australia is about 25 million people. Okay, do you remember learning this before? From another movie, I taught you that 3/4 of Australia's population were born in Australia. Can you see the red? The red is 3/4, 3 out of 4 people in Australia were born in Australia. Can you see the blue? The blue is 1/4, 1 part out of 4. 1 in 4 people of Australia's population were born overseas. This many people were born in other countries. 1/4. 3/4 of the population were born in Australia. 1/4 were born overseas. Okay, let's try some practice test questions. Questions for your test. Number 1, what was Australia's population when it became a Commonwealth? What was Australia's population, how many people, when it became a Commonwealth? Now remember, Australia became a Commonwealth country in 1901. What was Australia's population? A, 4 million people, not including Indigenous people. 4 million people including Indigenous people. 10 million not including Indigenous people, or 10 million including Indigenous people. Do you remember the right answer? 4 million people, not including Indigenous people. That means they did not count the Indigenous people in the population count. So this is in 1901 when Australia became a Commonwealth. The population was 4 million, not including Indigenous peoples. Good. Let's try number 2. True or false? Remember, true is right, false is wrong. In the first half of the 20th century, migration levels only rose. Remember, rose means up. Migration means move to another place. Did the amount of people migrating to Australia only go up, or did it go up and down? Remember the arrows? This one is false because it rose and fell. The numbers went up and the numbers went down. Different things happening in the world. Let's try number 3. Programs encouraged immigrants from where to come and settle in Australia? Which country encouraged immigrants, remember migrants, people to move? Which country encouraged people to move to come and settle in Australia? Do you remember? The answer was Britain. Programs encouraged immigrants from Britain, let's put it here, Britain, to come and settle in Australia. We put it there, it's right in our sentence, in the right place. Good. Let's try number 4. After World War II, a wave of immigrants came from, remember, World War II, where did the migrants come from? Did they come from A, Russia, B, Africa, C, Europe, or D, Britain? Where did people come from to Australia after World War II? Do you remember? Europe. A wave of migrants came from Europe after World War II. Well done. Number 5. Why do people come to Australia? Why do people come to Australia? A, to join family. B, to make a new life. C, to escape poverty, war, or persecution. Or D, all of the above. Why do people come to Australia? Why did you come to Australia? Maybe one of these reasons, but people come to Australia for all of those reasons. Remember, all means this one, and this one. All. All of those are reasons to come to Australia. All right, 2 more questions, then we're done. Number 6. What is Australia's current population? Remember, current means now. Population means how many people. What is Australia's current population? About how many? Do you remember? About 25 million. Good. Last question, number 7. How many of Australia's current population were born in Australia? How many of Australia's current population were born in Australia? Do you remember? Is it 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, or 2/3? 3/4 were born in Australia. Remember, 1/4 were born overseas, but 3/4 were born in Australia. This was a hard lesson. I hope you are going okay. I will see you next time when we learn more things. Well done, you're doing well. Hang in there.